kind of take over the show, and I'm going to ask Wes some questions, and kind of I hope I cover some of the questions that some of the people out there in the audience and the fan base might want to hear as well. But it's kind of hard when you're such a big dog like Wes. He's been in the field for quite some time now. He's pretty much founder of Sasquatch Chronicles, podcaster for Sasquatch Chronicles. He's been in contact with some of the bigger podcasters. He's talked to Joe Rogan, Clyde Lewis, who is it? Jericho. You've talked to them. So he's kind of been around. And I thought for a second we just might take a break and shift gears, and let's talk to him for a second and see what his views are. So welcome to the show tonight, everybody. It's going to be a good show. I'm only going to be on for part of it. Glad to be back. Wes, thanks for having me here. Welcome to your show, brother.
Well, thanks for the intro, man. That's better than I normally do. Normally I'm just, hey, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here. You know, all the rigmarole I just kind of get through, but good job, man. Good job.
Yeah. No, thank you, man. No, I really, I haven't gave you a lot of credit as far as the show is. It is a 200th show, man, and if you kind of look back onto it, I don't know. It's kind of funny. You go back all the way back. In fact, you know what? Let's just do this. Take me back to 2012 when this all first started with you and your very first encounter with myself and I. And you don't have to tell the whole thing over again, but because you've probably told it a million times. But did you really think that something that Sasquatch Chronicles and your podcasting and that thing that happened on that night that you and I were out after we had a really, really bad weekend? There was a lot of things going on in our life, and I don't think a lot of the people understand what was actually going on. I mean, we weren't going crazy or anything, but we were just trying to check out for a little bit and kind of find ourselves, and then that happened, and it's like life just. I'm not saying that Bigfoot itself kind of changed our life, but it's been a huge impact, right?
Yeah, it has been a huge impact. You know, it's crazy. 200 shows, I still can't believe it. I still am in shock over 200 shows because I didn't think I'd be doing this long, to be honest with you. When we first started, most people don't know how broke we actually were. And I look at the mic I'm using now compared to Goodwill. They were Goodwill mics. We spent like $5 on them.
$4.99.
Yeah, $4.99, and got these mics together, and then going through having a hard time getting anyone to come on the show, having a hard time getting anyone to share their encounters. It was tough. It was very, very tough. I mean, I got to the point where I was like, well, why am I doing this anymore? No one's going to come on the show. No one's going to talk about their encounters. And then one day they did, and I never thought I'd be doing this for a living. Dreams do come true, man. It's funny, and I was just talking to a listener the other day, who was telling me about, he's going through a hard time in life. He's going through a divorce. He's going through this and that. Sometimes the worst times in your life, you look back and you think, wow, that really turned out pretty good for me. And I'm not the marketing genius everyone thinks I am online. The show's just grown, and it's been a really weird experience for me, I think, more than anything else.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. I think you actually are not even, and I know you're my brother, and I love you, and you're not actually even really the same person that you were back then. There's been a lot of changes with you, and I would say for the better, and I think probably for myself as well. It's kind of funny about you saying that how broke we were. It was funny when we very, very first started the show, and a lot of people don't know this, but I'll spill my guts right now. When it was Bigfoot Hotspot Radio back in the day, when you and I very first started, every show was live, and we had some callers come in, and it was kind of like him and I would roll the dice on who was going to pay the bill that month. We couldn't even afford the bill to be on Blog Talk, and we would hurry up and try to get the shows posted and put on the air before they take us off the air, and it's came quite a ways since then, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, it is funny. Most people don't realize that. Like Blog Talk, I think they charge $40 a month to be on their network. And there was times, man, where we were scrambling to get the $40, and this was never meant to be a way of making a living. It was more or less just a hobby. And it seems like the more and more witnesses that came forward, people just wanted more and more and more shows. And so it kind of became difficult. It really became, I got to work too, and I got to make a living, and I got to, and then on top of this, I'm doing the show. And
you got a family, and you're a dad, you got a lot of things happening.
Well, that's the other thing too, is, the show's very time consuming. Most people don't realize, I think when they listen to me and they listen to the show, they might hear an hour or an hour and 20 minutes or an hour and 30 minutes sometimes. I've probably talked to 7 or 8 people before I got to that person and tried to pull them to come on the show. And so there's a lot of work that goes into it, but I love it, man. I love talking to people. I love trying to solve a mystery, and this really is one of the biggest mysteries of our lifetime. And it makes me feel good, I guess, when people come on and share the encounter and then say, you know what, I feel better after telling someone. I feel like a weight's been lifted off of me because I know that feeling. I know what it's like when you go through something and you want to tell someone, but you don't want to be called a liar in the same breath, or you don't want to be called crazy, or you don't want someone to make fun of you. You just kind of want to share what you've seen. And that's the cool part about the show, man. The guests really are the stars. It's not me. Believe me, it's not me. It's the guests that come on are the stars of the show. And shout out should go to the fans of the show, because they've made the show what it is. It's not me by any means.
That's very humble of you to say. I don't think a lot of people understand that either, too. It is definitely about the fans and the support that you get from them. And it's kind of funny you say that, because that kind of was leading me into my next question was, you have a lot of benefits from the positive ends of the fan base and them really making the show. But then on the equal side, you've always got the lighter, better version, and then you've always got the darkness that goes along with it. You have to have a really thick skin. And I don't think you say, oh, well, I'm a podcaster, or I do this, or I do that. Well, I'm not even in the same boat you are, and take the amount of blowback, I guess would be the word that you would get. And that's a hard thing. How do you deal with that, man? That's tough, right? It's tough with just even dealing with ordinary life, and then you take a lot of bad stuff from people, and then you have to also eat that as well. So that's a hard one to answer, I know.
Yeah, it is. Like you said, you just have to have thick skin. I just had that conversation with Chris Jericho, and I'm not really a huge wrestling fan. I know who Chris is, and I respect what he does, and he's actually a great podcaster. Him and I talked at length about that over wrestling. I mean, the guy's amazing in the ring, but, one of the things I asked him off the air was, how does he deal with all that? Because he deals with it 100 times what I deal with it. I just get some nasty article written about me on Reddit, or I get some nasty article, some guy on Facebook hates my guts, or it's always people I've never met. That's the amazing thing. It's always people I've never met that hate my guts. It's it's just odd, man. It's the people that I think love you as much as the people that hate you. For me, I kind of walk a fine line with it, because I realize they're listening to my voice every night when they put in their headphones, and so there's somewhat of a connection there between me and the listener. But going back to the hate part of it, I guess you have to put everything in perspective. I've had a lot of guys who hate my guts, and they're podcasters, and they can't get 100 downloads on their show, but they spend an hour talking about themselves. It's really, I guess I'm getting off track. What I'm trying to say is, I think you have to have very thick skin and not take too many things personal. And just like anything else in life, man, you just have to roll with the punches and try and have a good time. I mean, God, life's so short. It's over. By the time you hit 75, 80 years old, you're in the ground. Why not enjoy life a little bit? Why not go out and have fun with it? And that's the attitude I try and keep, is just have fun with it. Don't take yourself too seriously. One of the things for me, I could read 1,000 people online tell me how great I am, and it's real easy to get big head in that situation. But I think at that point it doesn't become fun anymore. And like I said, just don't take yourself too seriously. Stay humble and appreciate what you have. Appreciate the people that listen. Appreciate the guests you have come on. Work hard, and you'll find success in anything in life. You know, it's funny how hard work has a funny way of masking itself as opportunity and success. And when you go back, it's nothing but hard work.
Wow, I wasn't expecting all that. That was a good answer.
Thanks.
That was awesome, man. You had me going there, and then you stopped, and I was like, wait a minute, why is he stopping?
Thanks, I think.
No, that is, man. That's me giving you a compliment. You know, I don't do that very often. So, no, but that was very man up of you to have that type of answer. And again, man, I just kind of wanted to thank you for having me on the show. I have one more question that I wanted to ask you, and it's kind of a generic question. You've heard it a million times, but throughout this whole adventure that you've had, sometimes your taste changes. You know what I mean? Sometimes you like a certain flavor, sometimes you don't. And kind of like learning with Bigfoot, you learn a little more about something, and then your idea might change. So, what's changed for you as far as day one? And now this is going to be like a 2 or 3 part question. I'm kind of getting off track as well, but bear with me.
Oh, great.
So yeah, here we go with Woody's mess. So from day one till now, what is your thinking changed as far as what the creature is? I know you've heard that a million times, but please bear with me and answer that. Along with that, this kind of the next question kind of falls into that, and you can answer this all in one, however you want to do it, based on kind of what your answer is. How is it different? There's been a lot of questions, I know, on Messenger, on Facebook, whatnot. How is your show different than just the audio version of the BFRO? And I kind of blindsided you with that question. We talked a little bit earlier, but that was a question that kind of came up, and I thought I'd throw that at you. But first of all, what has changed from day one till now on what your thoughts are? Is it still a dirty ape? Is it just an ape that we haven't discovered? Is it something that we've messed with the DNA? Is it something that was built by the humans? Just examples. And then the second part of that question is as far as what are the government cover-ups? And then do you believe in the government cover-ups? And then what's a BFRO? Does that have you're being compared to the audio version of the BFRO, so that's got to piss you off. So here we go. Hit it.
Do you have some coffee or something we need to talk about?
No, I probably should have, actually. I didn't mention the government part on the. I told you it was a 3-part question. I just left it out in the first part. So there you go. 3-part question. Can you remember it all? I'll help you.
Yeah, you might have to help me on that.
What's changed 2012 to now?
A lot.
Is it still that darn dirty ape?
Yeah, I still say that. You know, damn dirty ape, more or less as a joke. And I know one thing, I'll tell you one thing you asked me earlier, I'll answer earlier previously a lot's changed between 2012 and now. One thing I've noticed is people pay attention to every little word I say. And then I'll get emails and they'll say, well, you said it this way, or you pronounce this word this way, or you said it that, and I'm like, what? And I have to go back and
listen to it again.
Yeah, listen to it again. And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. That's changed a lot from when we very first started, because I don't think anyone cared when you and I were doing the show. It was hard, like I said, just to get people to listen or come on.
Yeah.
My attitude's changed about it being, I still think it's a non-human primate. I really do. How much human it has in it, I don't know. But a lot of the behaviors that, not a whole lot's changed, because the behaviors from witnesses that you talk to, they'll describe very non-human primate type behavior, throwing rocks, growling at you, whooping, breaking branches. They seem to do a lot of things that monkeys do. And so I don't think that they're I guess if you're asking me, do I think they're the friendly forest people, or if it's Harry and the Hendersons and you can pet them on the head, I still think they're very much a dangerous creature. None of that's really changed. I think they're one of the top predators out there. So I can't really say my attitude's changed. One of the biggest things that's changed is I realized that there was a government cover-up going on. I would just stumble into information, and I would say that was one of the biggest things that made me stop and go, you know what, something's going on here. There's too many things are being covered up. There's too much shady cleanup by the government, but I could never really figure out why. What was the second part of your question? What was the second part of your your 8-part question?
My 8-part. If it was 8-part, you would know it was 8-part. It was actually a 3-part question. If you can't remember 3 things, let me refresh you. One was, what has changed between you 2012 and now? And based on that, do you also believe that there was a government cover-up? You somewhat answered that. I kind of want to talk about that for just a quick second one more time, though. Along with a government cover-up, I was actually talking to some of the fan, or a couple of the fans earlier today, and one of the questions is based on the government, how they are known to run their things, and there's been some things that have recently happened. I don't know if everybody knows, but some really bad things that possibly the government could be into. One of the questions that came up, and at first I thought was kind of a corny question, but then, hey man, you know what? There's never a bad question, but here it is. Have you ever received any bribes from anybody via government, men in black, men in blue, men in purple, orange, rainbow? I don't know. Have you ever had anybody come to you and say, you say this and we'll pay you this amount?
No.
One more time.
No.
Okay. I thought I'd throw that out there. It's kind of one of those things when you're in a drug deal and it's like, are you a cop? And they're like, no. I'm like, are you sure you're not a cop?
Yeah, no, I've never had anything like that. I have had weird things happen where I'm pretty sure they were listening in on phone calls, and I've had the 000 numbers call me. It's usually after I talk to someone in the military is usually when I get those phone calls, or, you know, and who knows who's doing it. It's kind of coincidental that it's usually after I talk to someone in the military, I'll get 000 phone calls. But I bought a burner phone for when I talk to those high-level witnesses, and
yeah.
But yeah, it's strange. But I've never been bribed. Now, what made you ask that?
I'm curious. Just curious. I mean, you drive a Hummer.
Yeah. It's $70,000 Hummer, by the way.
Yeah, $70,000. Yeah, 20 years old and it's worth $70,000. That was really it, man. I mean, I didn't have. Other than that, I didn't have much for you. I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time. I know you got a lot of guests. More than that, I was just trying to use you to come on the show to be part of the 200th episode, and I was trying to weasel my way in, and so I found a way to do it.
Well, thanks for wasting my time.
Yeah, not a problem. I'll waste your time and make myself look better or dumber, one of the two. But no, man, I really want to say it comes right down to it. Nice work. I'm proud of you. I know it wasn't easy, so way to go, man. And I just want to stop by and say hi and see how you're doing, say hi to all the fans. Thanks for having me on. I don't know. I'll be back again someday.
I'm glad you came by. Yeah, it's crazy. I never thought we would hit 200. I remember, God, it seemed like yesterday we just hit 100. People always ask me what the funnest part of doing the show is, and it, like I said, man, it really is talking to the witnesses. I love retelling some of the older accounts, like the Terrorized by Giants or Ape Canyon, or I love telling old stories, but I would say my favorite part of doing the show really is having witnesses on. And God, can you imagine? I mean, I honestly, I thought we'd last about 30 shows and that would be it.
Yeah, I would be even surprised. I didn't think we'd even make that. I didn't think you'd make it either, man. And you did. One more quick thing before we cut out.
We got to go to commercial.
Okay.
I'm just joking. Go ahead.
You're such a jerk. One more quick thing and then we'll be done. What do you think about I was looking on the other day about, you know, we posted about when we saw the orbs up in Yakult. What a response we got back on that. I was kind of shocked about that. And then I went back and Wes will tell you, I'm one of those people that, like, I'll do the show or I'll watch the show, but I only do it one time. And a lot of times I won't even watch it or listen to it. But I went back and was looking over some of that footage that you put up on the website. And wow, man, you really got that first orb really good. And that's something that kind of you and I didn't really believe in before. That's something kind of new, right? So I wanted to throw that in there with the other questions. I didn't want to leave it for the end. I'm sorry I left that question for the end, but I kind of wanted to talk about the orbs for just a quick second. And I know you just had Ron Moorhead on the show not too long ago. And so, I don't know, man, what's your feeling on those things?
I don't know. I really don't know. You're right. You're right. I mean, I honestly thought it was horseshit.
Me too.
I really didn't believe in it. And it didn't shock me, the response. It shocked me seeing it, shocked me filming it, shocked me witnessing it. That's what really shocked me. The response afterwards really didn't shock me a whole lot. You know, like I said, there was probably, I don't even know how many shows ago it was. I'd almost need a fan of the show to tell me, because they generally know the shows better than I do.
Yeah.
But it was back, God, I want to say at least 100 shows ago. I talked about balls of light.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked about researchers talking about seeing balls of light, yet they won't come forward and say they saw these balls of light. And I thought it was just odd why they didn't want to come forward. And so I mentioned it one time on a show. It was like a minute, 27 seconds. I talked about it, talked about the World War II pilots seeing these balls of light in the air, and they called them Foo Fighters, and just kind of went over it real quick and really wasn't expecting anything to come of it. Just trying to fill time with something that might be interesting. And I was shocked. I mean, the emails I got from it almost broke my email box. I just got a flood of emails from hunters, hikers, people out in the woods that have said, hey, man, I saw those balls of light you're talking about. Almost more than Sasquatch. Almost more than Sasquatch encounters for about 7 days. It was, I mean, I could have done show after show after show just on these balls of light that people would see. What's my take on them? I hate to break it to everyone. I kind of think they're demonic, if you want my honest opinion. There's something not right about it, and it's not natural, in my humble opinion. I don't think it's natural. What they are, I don't know. But I was really in shock at seeing them. I mean, most people see the video, they see how much I'm surprised at seeing this. But what they are, I don't know. What did you think it was?
I'll tell you this much. Whatever they weren't good, man. Well, here's the thing. Let me say this. When I first had my first encounter with Bigfoot, I never thought that would happen. I called BS on it every time. Oh, whatever. There's no Bigfoot. There's not this hairy creature wandering around out in my backyard, at my grand folks' house in the center. It's not there. It's not happening. And then it happened. And then I saw it. And then after that, I was like, okay, well, I've heard from several of the interviews based on the show and some of the people that we've talked to in prior shows. And they're like, well, a lot of times with Bigfoot is associated these lights or these orbs, people call them. And I'm like, oh, BS, right? And then sure enough, you and I are out there. I think it was, I don't remember what time it was. And if I say a time, I'll get in trouble. But I know it was right around 1 o'clock, somewhere around there, probably in the morning. And we look over, man, down there where the main water source is, coming down off the Lewis there. There's 3 of them, plain as day, bang, 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 bang. And then they move along with it. The first one was moving with us for quite some time. And I don't know if people really got that from the video or if you talked about that, but that one was kind of like following us along the waterway while we were up on the top for a little while. And I know we did a show on it and whatnot, but I don't know if I brought that up. But it really kind of changed my perspective again. I'm like, okay, first I immediately thought there was no Bigfoot. Now I think there's definitely no orbs. Now I've seen both, so it really kind of put me into a spin as far as really what I think they are. And to be honest with you, I'm kind of with you as far as the demonic thing. I'm going to say either demonic or they are not from here, man. I'm going to have to say somewhat alien, and I hate to always jump back to that, hey, they're not from planet Earth or whatever. But man, it was very unnatural. It wasn't normal. And it sure is funny to where, and I think a lot of the fans probably know because you talked about it, but where they were at, where our encounter was, as you throw a rock, they're all kind of in line. And it was right where our first encounter was. So that was also kind of weird. I don't know. I don't like to say that, hey, every weird thing out there is Bigfoot. And I hate to say that because I've I've been chewed on for that. And there comes the thick skin thing again. But as far as the orbs, man, I don't know. I just wanted to get your opinion on it one more time.
Yeah.
I should have asked it earlier in the show, and I think pretty much you and I are in the same realm as far as what they are.
I don't think that the lights and Sasquatch are the same issue going on. What I picture is just like Sasquatch being a non-human primate, and then us being a primate. You see a light in the woods, and I would imagine curiosity kicks in, and you go check it out. I don't know that I'm not convinced that it's the same issue going on, all in the same thing. You know what I mean? I think it's two separate issues going on. But I'm with you. I mean, either demonic, alien, something's going on with those orbs, man. And I don't even know if orb is really the great term. I guess ball of light makes me feel better saying ball of light more than an orb.
Yeah, it does. It's not so witchcrafty sounding, but it definitely was weird, and it's definitely something that I saw, and it wasn't a reflection from the moon to the water. So here we go. Here's another thing that's happened, and now we got to explain this one too. So, but anyways, hey man, I just want to say thanks for having me by. I know you've been through some stuff in the last year or so, especially with the show. Some of the guests that have been on the show, and I'm really glad that you just you've been crushing it, dude. You keep pushing forward, and not giving up. And so, way to go! It's a great show. As far as I'm concerned, it's the best Bigfoot show that's out there. And I really believe that you could probably do just about any topic that's out there if you wanted to. So, good job, man. Thanks for having me on the 200th show. I'll catch with everyone later. Thank you for everybody for listening. Thanks for listening to me drill west for the last 40 minutes. And we'll probably do it again sometime. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me, Wes. Appreciate it.
And that was Woody, everyone. My brother, Woody. Woody, thanks for coming on. And thank you guys for being here tonight. I want to remind you guys, if you've had an encounter and you'd like to be on the show, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. And if you get a chance, please check out the website, sasquatchchronicles.com. This is going to be a two-part show tonight. Tomorrow night, I'm going to be having the Outlaws on, Bear and Kumbo and Matt, and a few other people are going to stop by and say hi. So the celebration continues tomorrow night. I hope you guys can join me. Next up, I want to welcome Bob Garrett to the show. Bob is one of my favorite researchers down there in Texas. I've known Bob for a long time. Bob and I are pretty close friends, and he's one of the few guys I go to and ask for help whenever I have someone on the show that, something doesn't make sense or there's something strange in an encounter. He's always there for me. He always picks up the phone. So I don't even want to announce him as a researcher. I would say he's more of a close friend. And as all of you know from listening to past shows, Bob has a lot of stories and a lot of experiences that he likes to share. And I always enjoy having him on. Bob, thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for being a part of the 200th show, man.
Oh, thanks for asking me. I appreciate it.
I appreciate having you on. I always enjoy having you on. I always enjoy talking with you. And this being the 200th episode, I really wanted to have you back. You were the first guy on my list that I wanted to have on the show, so thank you. I know one of the things the fans might be excited about is Bob and I have been talking, along with Mo and Tim, about these guys bringing back the Big Thicket Watch on Sasquatch Chronicles and maybe doing it. We haven't figured out a day yet, but I think the fans would be excited about that. It's a show that it's your guys' show, and but I'm excited to have you guys listen to you guys every week. I'd love to have you guys back. I'm sure the fans will be excited.
Oh, we're extremely excited about bringing back the show, and actually, I want to tell you that I appreciate you letting us come back on Sasquatch Chronicles. Bring the show in that way.
Yeah, no, the honor's mine. Like I said, the honor's mine. Anytime I can get you guys on the show, I'd love to have you guys here. And being that you guys will be doing your own show, it's even better. It's more information for me to listen to. It's interesting, Bob. I had Waylon on last week, and he was talking about your guys' encounter down there at Monkey Pond. Do you want to recap for the audience what happened?
I can. We had come in and, kind of make it short, but we had come in and there had been a lot of shooting up and down the main road. This area is very remote. Very few people come in there. But apparently, I don't know what the shooting was all about, but it upset the females. We heard the females begin to make vocals in distress, which the males, of course, were, further off, and they began to answer the females. And as soon as, pardon me, I got a little bit of the flu, pardon me. As soon as that happened, all the shooting stopped. All the loud broadcasting of music and laughter and all of that stopped. And it just got deathly quiet. I mean, it was just deathly quiet. And Waylon and I, we looked at each other. It was getting dark, and it got darker and darker. It was almost like we were waiting for the slasher to come out, in a scary movie or something. That's just kind of the way it felt.
Yeah, I bet.
But, I had put my microphone up, that I use when I do a lot of my recording, for sounds and everything, and I had put it up on a tree, and it's real long. The cord on it's real long. And I sat there with that, and Waylon sat, looking towards me right at the back of the Humvee. Waylon, he got up all of a sudden real fast, and he started shining his big flashlight all around. And I asked him, I said, "What happened? What did you see?" And Waylon said, "Well, I saw something run out of the side of my vision, run from these pine trees over to the other pine trees." Well, that concerned me. And so, we watched over that direction for a while, and we heard a stomp, like a heavy foot stomped off in the other direction to the side of us, that direction. Anyway, by that time, Waylon had got his big heavy shotgun out, and I had my pistol, and we knew that this was not going to be a good night for us. Everything got real quiet except for off in the distance. We got vocals and different things like that. We heard behind us again, and to the side of us, we heard more, big sticks breaking. Pardon me. We heard the stomp again. It was like something was moving all around behind us. Well, a little bit, right after that, we heard what sounded like a log getting thrown into the water across the lake from us. I got my night vision out, and all of this had been happening, for a couple of hours and everything, and then it would get real quiet again. But the log going into the water, that was kind of like the last straw for us. I got my night vision out, and I have an extra flashlight that has IR light to extend the range. And I was looking, and I actually was looking at where the log had gone in, and I was panning along the shoreline. And I guess it's like, 60 yards or whatever from where we are to the little beach that I panned across. And it just hit me, I see something. So I get up to get a little closer and walk down a little ways to the on our side to the water. and I'm looking, and as it comes into focus, I'm standing here looking at 5 individuals. I counted them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I knew this was not going to be good. You know, anytime I have ever seen 5 individuals or 4 individuals, something was getting killed, or they were hunting. And about that time, again, more stuff was going on behind us. And I told Waylon, I said, Waylon, pack it up, we've got to go. And apparently, I mean, I don't know what was in their heads, because this has never happened at Monkey Pond before. Never has this happened before. But I think we were on the menu, and I think they were probably thinking that we were the ones that had done all the shooting. I think if we'd have stayed there a little bit longer, we probably wouldn't be here right now. But Waylon, he starts picking everything up and tossing it in the back of the Hummer. And, you know, I got my stuff, and we're watching and looking behind us because there's, you know, noise behind us and everything. And we got in the Hummer, and the last thing I thought about, I told Waylon, I said, be real careful, because you have to go around this levee that's, you know, kind of thin, you know, not real long or wide, you know what I'm talking about, 'cause you've been out there.
Yeah, I know the exact spot.
Well, somebody has been in there, and they have while it was wet, and it's just really torn it up. So there was a lot of mud and everything in there. And the last thing I wanted to do was for us to get stuck. And then one of the things that we started thinking about was, oh, my Lord, you know, they could close us off right there if a tree goes down in front of us. But we passed that area, and we went on out, and we didn't see anything after that. But when we got out to the main gate where you have to do the combination, I sat there with my pistol and my floodlight, and watched Waylon's back while he opened the gate, and then he watched my back as I closed the gate and got back in. My hairs on the back of my neck were just crawling until I got in that Hummer, and we turned that corner, and we were got on the main road. After that, we could kind of, take stock of what happened and everything, between each other. And I tell you what, I was pretty frightened. I don't mind telling anybody that. I know. I really was.
I would imagine anyone in that position would be frightened, having that many show up. That area, I've always wondered, Bob, if that is an area where females hang out. I think I told you the first night while you were there, the first night that we were there, you heard that one female just screaming. I mean, just screaming at the top of its lungs.
Right.
And it sounded very female-like.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you think that's an area where just the females kind of hang out?
Well, in my experience, we've been coming out there for years and years. There's an area that the females do hang out, and where they, spend a lot of time with the young and everything, because you can hear sometimes when mama hollers, you can hear them holler. There's a really nice place near the lower side. If you take that road, and you know what I'm talking about, back there in the back,
yeah,
that goes all the way around, that road is grassy, and it comes into some really nice grassy areas. They like to lay back in there and rest and everything. And the males kind of go on about their own business and come back and forth. But a lot of what you can hear out there is you hear an exchange of the females and the males, the exchange of, we're over here, everything's good, I guess, and hey, we're over here, we're hunting, and we'll be there later.
Yeah, I did notice that when we were there. I know when Brandon took us out, deep out in the woods, I could kind of tell from one direction it sounds like a bunch of males, and then you
Mm-hmm.
could almost hear from a different direction. You could hear what sounded like a bunch of males going off. And the vocals you get out there are just crazy, I guess, for the people listening. The vocals you'll hear in that area are just will blow your mind. And the cool part about that area is that's kind of where I would hang out if I was a Sasquatch. It's kind of a serenity type place. You know, you don't expect that going there because you're right. There's this beautiful pond. There's an old, I wouldn't say boat ramp, but kind of an old dock, and just a beautiful place to camp. And
Right.
but come nightfall, they go off.
Right. Well, there's several ponds in the area, not just this one, this little lake that we camp by. There's several other ponds on the property. It consists of several thousand acres, like 30, 35,000, 40,000 acres. They've acquired more out there. But yeah, it's a beautiful area, and part of the Lone Star Trail runs through there. And it's a stopping off place for one of the oldest areas the Lone Star Trail runs through, as a matter of fact. And, a lot of people have come in there and camped that are walking on the Lone Star Trail. And that's actually how we found it ourselves.
It's a beautiful area. One of the things I was still laughing about the other day when you were telling me the story about the Sasquatch eating the rag.
Oh.
And it made it made me think of I was telling you I got a dumb dog that will sit and eat anything you put in front of him. I mean, some of the things he's eaten he's a smart dog, except for when it comes to food, he turns into like a 400-pound man that is at a buffet. He just yeah. But will you tell that story, the one where it ate that and puked it up?
Yeah. We, Travis and I, we'd been tracking one that appeared to be sick. It would stop and it would moan and it would roll on the ground and everything. And it, just made all kinds of horrible noises and nasty noises, And it would get up and it would move on and it was moving slow. And it would holler and everything, and we were getting pretty close to it, just staying kind of right out of its area, right out of its reach. This thing, I swear to God, it finally doubled over. It hit the ground and doubled over, and it just started throwing up. I mean, it started losing its cookies, boy. And I have never seen or heard of any of them doing anything like this before. But, oh, my gosh, it just went on and on and on and on. It emptied its whole belly. Anyway, it went on after it was done. It crawled off, basically. When we got up there, we thought, oh, my gosh. I mean, it really stunk. But I wanted to see, what had made it so sick. And sure enough, there was a lot of household garbage in the throw up, whatever you want to call it. But there was a lot of household garbage, like carrot peels. There was potato peels. There was pieces of potato, pieces of carrots, pieces of just peas and just whatever, somebody might have ate, and things that we or might have, cleaned off of a plate into the garbage can. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And one of the things that was laying there was a full-size kitchen towel. This thing had picked up, I guess whoever cleaned up the mess had just thrown away this towel full of, whatever they had picked up, peelings and all kinds of stuff, and just threw it all in there. and this thing had ate that damn towel full of whatever it had in it. It apparently made itself just horribly sick until it finally could pass that towel back out of its mouth, stomach. But it was Travis and I were laughing our butts off. The thing about it is that we realized where they had been, or where it had been. It had been, there's 3 houses out there. They have been out there for years and years and years, and some of it is private property from back when, it was a town at one time in this one area, before the National Forest, came to be, in other words. So, this little area is completely surrounded by the National Forest. And they get visits, from time to time, and whatever had been, these people's dinner and preparation for dinner, it had ate out of the garbage can. And it swallowed that damn towel. And it was so sick, Wes. I couldn't believe how sick that thing was. I was really happy when he finally passed it all,
It's interesting. That story's interesting. I just had Isaac on the last show, and he's part of the Ute tribe, and he was talking about on the reservation. It make the whole encounter really short. Basically, what happened is he was laying in his tent, and he heard them coming up the road, and he heard them chattering back and forth, talking to each other, and they would kind of break off, and then he heard them digging through people's trash. Basically going from house to house, digging through trash. And he'd hear them kind of chatter back and forth and talk to each other. One would even kind of yell over at the other one at the other house, and then they'd come together and go apart. And he said all night long they just went through people's trash, almost like they were looking for food. It's kind of funny. I mean, with these things, you hear so many different things, like they have superpowers and they can do this and they can mind speak to you. And here's just kind of a dumb one, eating a rag, like you would see a dog eat a rag, or, it's hard to pinpoint these things having special powers after hearing something like that. You know what I mean?
Well, he really messed up. That's for dadgum sure. And I tell you what, I don't even know what some of those bits were, what it had been eating, but whatever it was, I mean, we even saw coffee grounds. And, oh my Lord, this thing, they're like a bear. And, they'll go for the garbage. And, just like a bear would. And, they're opportunists and everything. But, my God, I never thought that I would ever experience one literally swallowing a kitchen towel. I mean, it was a whole kitchen towel, Wes.
Yeah.
And, I mean, whatever was in it must have been pretty damn good for him to just pop that thing in his mouth. And, I can just see, a whole bunch of stuff, in that towel. And he just popped it in his mouth and chewed the whole dadgum thing up and swallowed it. But I guess it wouldn't pass through his bowels or whatever. It made him so sick.
Oh, God, can you imagine puking up a towel?
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
But after he got it up and he was good to go, we never could get close enough to him to hear him much anymore.
Yeah, he's probably feeling better after he puked that thing up. It's interesting. One of the other things, too, Bob, I remember you said to me, and it always kind of stuck with me. I would say I was confused by it, but it always kind of stuck with me, is you talked about the brown ones and the black ones. And I remember I was like, why is Bob referencing color? And, I had Isaac on, and he talked about the tribe's history. And he talked about what his grandfather would say about them. And his grandfather said in their area, there was 2 types. There was brown ones and there was black ones. And if you come across a brown one, turn and leave the area as quickly as you can, because they mainly are just meat eaters and they will kill you. They called them the child snatcher. Mm-hmm. That was basically what the whole tribe calls them, is child snatchers. And his grandfather said they'd flat out eat kids. They'd snag kids and eat them. And then he talked to him about these black ones. And he said the black ones are a little bit smarter than the brown ones. They will eat vegetation as well as meet, and the black ones may not mess with you. They're definitely nothing to be played with, but for the most part, they'll leave the area. If you're in the area, they'll kind of turn and just leave. And he said with these brown ones, if you come across a brown one, get the hell out of the area because they will kill you. And it almost makes you wonder, beyond brown and black, what he's referencing, as far as types.
Well, the black ones are typically, Patty style. They got the high forehead and everything, and they seem to be a little more laid back from what I can see. And they seem to be a lot smarter, too. But the brown ones, they have a rounder head. And I don't know what the significance of that is. But they will kill you. And, the Indians, a lot of the Native Americans have called them lots of different things. And one of them that sticks in my mind right now is they call them cannibal rapists. And they steal children. And they'll steal women. That's what they apparently do is, they go near the tribes and they wait, and when the children aren't being watched or whatever, they'll try to take children. They'll try to take women, old men. There was a time when we heard about a older man that had been taken while out hunting, and it had actually pulled the head off of the man and had chewed on him and ate on him and everything. So
that's really terrifying. As I get into this, you learn about the different types, and it's fascinating. It makes sense that there would be different types. I think, hindsight, I'd almost kind of raise an eyebrow if everyone across the country was describing the Roger Patterson film, or, Patterson-Gimlin film, and you just don't find that. And so it's a good warning for people. You never know what you're going to come across with these things. And another thing I remember you told me was, because I was ready to, after we had the log thrown at us, I was like, let's go back in. And I remember you had made the comment, hey, these aren't your toys to be played with. And kind of made me stop and think about a lot of things, people being taken, some of the horror stories I've heard of people who get too close. And so it's a good advice, it's, even if you see a black one, I guess for people listening, you just never know. One thing I wanted to ask you is about your first encounter. I don't know that you've ever told your first encounter on the show, your first introduction to this whole thing. Would you mind telling that story?
Well, no, I don't mind. It's kind of long, but I was 16, and it was hunting season. And there's this area that I really loved to go hunt because I had taken a good bit of deer in the area. I had to cross some other people's property, which I had permission to do. And I was proud because, I could go without my older brother or something because I just got my driver's license. I was 16. And I got in my dad's truck and was allowed to go. I got there probably about, it was still dark. I had gone through the gate and, walked that whole piece of property all the way over to some power lines. They had cleaned out these power lines. They had left piles of logs, and things, trees and things like that. They didn't, in other words, clean them all completely off. And so I got out there and I crossed the barbed wire fence and I started off, going to my favorite spot. It's just a jumble of logs and I climb up inside of them. And it's a very good blind. And but I was walking down the power line. And I soon realized that something was walking with me, keeping up with me. But it was right in the tree line. Let me give you a little history first of my area before I finish that. All of us kids, back then in that day and age, we all had chores to do. We all did a lot of things. But one of the things that we always did was we hung out on the creeks. And we had two main creeks that run through our part of the piney woods. And we fished and put out trot lines and stuff like that. We hunted in those areas. Everybody knew that there was something out there in those woods. Everybody knew. I mean, it was the talk of our little community. But being 16 years old, you know, we would find large footprints and things of that sort. We would find strange deer kills and hog kills and things like that. And we would even at night when we camped out there on the creeks, we would hear things, and we would hear sound like a big man would get in the creek and, you know, cross. But, you know, we're 16 years old, and none of that stuff really sunk in long enough to do anything but, you know, kind of scare us a little bit. And so when this happened, I was aware that there was something out there. I mean, even the adults talked about, you know, something was out there. Something, you know, would get a pig. Something would get the chickens. Something would get eggs and leave the chickens, you know, and things like that, and leave big footprints and what all. And, you know, people, other kids my age, you know, had made sightings and everything. And, you know, the adults had sightings. My dad and I, we were moving. He was so proud of this chair. It was the very first easy chair I think they ever came out with. And he had bought that easy chair, and we were unloading it out of the truck, and it was dark. All of a sudden, beside the house, we heard this huge holler. My dad put the chair down, and he said, "In the house, in the house." So we went in the house, and he wouldn't go back out there to get that chair until morning. And that's when we went out and got the chair. Was first thing that morning. But so everybody knew that there was something out there. Okay, now that I got that clarified.
No, I understand that. I wanted to ask you before you jump back into the story.
Okay.
Did they know what was out there, or was it just more or less, hey, we got a predator in the area?
Oh yeah, the adults. You could sit down at the feed store and listen to them. It would get very heated. There were the non-believers and the believers, and things like that. But yeah, they all called it the booger, and everybody knew, you know, the booger was a big hairy man, and you know, and some people, you know, they you know, they call it, like I said, you know, pig stealer, egg stealer, chicken stealer, but mostly it was the booger. So you know, they knew, and we had some pig farmers and chicken farmers and, you know, people like that on our, you know, 10-mile stretch of road. They were always talking about, you know, losing piglets and losing, you know, full-size hogs and everything, and finding hogs with, you know, their bellies torn open and all the, you know, the goodies, you know, taken out, the organs and everything, and bites in the body and everything. Yeah, everybody knew that something was going on out there. Anyway, it was dark, and I was walking down the power line, and I knew without a doubt that there was something shadowing my footsteps. I continued on. I pulled the hammer back on my rifle. I heard something run across behind me. Well, I turned around, and I looked, and I didn't see anything. Like I said, it was still dark. And but something had gone close enough to give me the willies. You know, you could hear slap, 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 slap of some big old feet. And then on the other side, it was shadowing me on that side. Well, a little bit later, as I was really relieved to see that I was getting a little bit of, you know, the sky was getting a little bit lighter above the trees, the pines and everything. And I could see my destination wasn't far. And all of a sudden, I heard, pad, 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 slap, 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 slap behind me. And it got on the other side of me. And I turned around and I looked all around. I hollered and everything. And, gave it warning. And I was thinking, well, my damn brother's out here and he's pulling a fast one on me, But, they never hollered back or anything. And anyway, it continued to follow me. And I finally got to my blind, and I crawled up in those trees as fast as I could, a stack of trees as fast as I could. I started, looking around, watching around and everything. And this black thing ran across right in front of the tree, right in front of where I was at in that pile of trees. And it went over to the other side. Well, I was thinking to myself, basically, what the hell is this? And I'm scared, and all kinds of monsters and haunts, started going through my head, and it runs across behind me then, and it goes to the other side. I'm watching it. It's just inside the tree line, and it did this more than once, back and forth, back and forth. And finally, I decided, I'm getting the heck out of here. So, I'm climbing down out of them logs, and of course, I busted my knee and everything, and was saying some very bad words that my grandmother would just wash my mouth out with soap for. even at that age. And she was just a little old woman, and but man, she was a tough woman.
Yeah.
But that was, and it's funny that's what I was thinking. Grandma was going to wash my mouth out with soap. I'm 16 years old, and there's a damn monster running back and forth. But I'm more scared of my grandma that she might hear me all the way back to the house.
Yeah.
And anyway, I got down and I'm hot-footing it, and this thing is keeping up with me. Well, it didn't run back across or anything, but it's keeping up with me. And I would stop and it would stop, and then I would go and it would go, and I got to that barbed wire fence. And when I did, there was some pine trees, and there was a big oak tree that had limbs that came down almost to the kind of curved down almost to the ground. And it was light enough then, I could see that the sun had come up, and that thing was standing right there. Well, I stopped dead still, and I'm looking at it, and it's looking at me. And we're not that far apart, and I walked forwards. Well, when I did, it backed up. Well, I thought, okay. And, I backed off, and it came forwards. And it would actually kind of move the limbs to look at me. And I'd never seen anything like this before in my life. Anyway, my heart's pounding, and I had dropped the hammer on my rifle, and I went ahead and clicked it back. Anyway, we played this little game where I would walk forwards, and it would back up, and I would back up, and it would walk forwards. And I thought, well, there's a pine tree right here, a big pine tree right around the corner. If I get over there by that pine tree, I can see him. I'd be able to see whatever this damn thing is, and I'll be able to shoot it. So I walked over to that pine tree, and as soon as I came around the side of the pine tree, that damn thing came out from around the other side of the pine tree, and it's looking at me. It's not that much taller than me. It's got, I'm taking it all in, and it was obviously male. The hair on it was sharp, had sharp cropped ears. It had a rounder head than what I've seen before. Of course, this was here in East Texas. It didn't seem to be showing any sign of aggression. It was just looking at me. And it was so close to me, I could have reached out and touched the damn thing's chest. Pardon my language.
No, you're good. You're good.
But
what did it look like, Bob?
Well, it looked like a man. It had bigger, thicker jaw than me. It was much stronger than me. I could see that, and I was pretty damn strong at that age. It had kind of a brow ridge, and it had eyes that was kind of orangish in the whites, and they were deep set in, and they were brown eyes, and it had a nose just like anybody else, only it was bigger, and it kind of was, it was kind of squashed a little bit in the nostril, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, kind of mushed down.
Yeah, it had really big, thick lips. Its skin was ashen gray, like campfire ash gray. And it was black with some brown in it. Its hands were huge, and they went down, almost past the knees, I would say. Its thumb was kind of funny, like something that, I don't know, that gets in, that climbs in the trees and stuff.
Kind of like a gorilla, has like a real big...
Yeah, similar. Its fingernails, I could see the fingernails perfectly. And, they were dirty and broken and worn and kind of orangish colored, brownish colored. It had feet like me, except for bigger. It was just the dangest thing I'd ever seen in my life. I couldn't put a word to it because I didn't know what the hell to call it, other than the booger. I'm seeing the booger. That's what I'm thinking to myself. I am seeing the booger face to face. I could have reached out and touched it. As a matter of fact, my hand involuntarily, came up, and that's when it backed up a little bit. The hair didn't seem coarse. It seemed like hair, but it was those places on its body that there wasn't a lot of hair, like on the chest and the stomach and everything. Its legs were completely hairy except for the knees. And the tops of the feet, there was hair on tops of the feet. Oh man, I was scared, and I backed up a little bit, trying to get closer to that fence, and it came towards me, and that's when I put my gun up. I pulled my gun up because I wasn't sure what its intentions were. So far, it had not been aggressive to me at all. It had just been like me, I was sizing it up and looking it up and down, and it was looking at me up and down. But, still, my warning bells were going off, and I just wanted to get the hell out of there. After it had backed off again, some more, when I had pulled the gun up, I turned and I went to that barbed wire fence, Wes, and I'll tell you what, I don't know how I didn't rip myself apart, because I went through that barbed wire fence, boy. I was leaving shirt, I was leaving pants, I was leaving, pieces of my pants. I left hair on that fence. And
I bet.
I fell through it. I picked up my gun. I turned around, and it was still there. It had come closer. And I ran all the way back to those people's property and went out that gate. My heart was pounding like crazy. I never stopped. I don't even remember if I closed the gate completely or not. and I threw my gun in the back of the bed of that pickup truck. I jumped in that old pickup truck of my dad's. I had no idea that that pickup truck could get so much rubber on the road. Put it that way.
I bet.
I turned that truck on a dime in the middle of that little old road, and I mean I was squealing everywhere. That truck was fishtailing, and my Lord, I got out of there, and when I got home, you know, I was obviously cut up, and I had some pretty good slices in me. And my shirt was all torn. You know, I had blood on my face because I had actually cut my face and everything. I don't know why I didn't leave an eyeball back there, too. You wouldn't believe how I went through that fence. It was almost like it wasn't there, you know. But I confronted my dad, and I told him, I said, Dad, you know, I told him what I saw, and I told him exactly what happened. And, of course, you know, it was all coming out in a big old rush and everything. But my dad, he looked at me, and he was very serious, and he said, Bob, he said, you know, don't tell anybody about that. And I said, what? And he said, promise me that you won't tell anybody about that, and you'll leave it alone. He said, don't you go out there looking for it. He said, don't you do it. I guess he already knew what was in my mind, you know. And I said, well, I won't. You know, I promised him I wouldn't, and I'm in it, too. I'm in every damn bit of it. And he said, well, then just leave it alone. He said, let's not talk about it anymore. And he said, don't say nothing. He said, don't say anything about it down at the feed store. And I said, okay. So I told my grandparents, you know, lived with us at that time. I told my grandfather. And my grandfather, he was, you know, he thought about this for a while. And then he said, you know what, Bob? He said, I'm going to tell you something. He said, we know it's out there. He said, we don't know what it is. But he said, the old folks used to say the gray man followed us from Scotland. You know, and it's true because we had, you know, I lived in a traditional Scottish home, you know, where they spoke the old tongue and everything. And you know, my grandma would sing, and we would have it, you know, every night, you know, Grandpa would, you know, tell us stories orally and everything. I had a very simple life. And we had no TV. We barely finally got a radio, you know.
Yeah.
But he told me, he said, they come up sometimes and they want to look at you. He said, just let them look. He said, pay no attention to them. He said, just let them look. He said, and don't bother them. Don't try to talk to them. Don't give them any food. He said, just let them go about their business. Let them do the looking that they want. Let them go about their business. He said, because they can be very dangerous. And I said, yes, sir. I said, yes, sir, I won't, you know. And so I guess that was, I know that was long-winded, but that was my first sighting.
No, I'm glad you told it. It's a very interesting sighting. I was just thinking about your grandfather and your dad. You know, they were obviously trying to protect you. They knew the heat people were taking coming forward, talking about it at that time. And it's amazing how they weren't like, oh, come on, what did you run into? Was it a bear? You know, yet it seems like it was none of that.
No. They knew what it was. They knew it was out there. I mean, we had a place called Spooky Lake that, you know, a lot of people would walk around out there, picnic and stuff like that. It apparently would stay in that area a lot. What it is a tidal area where the river, I mean, not the river, but the creek would overflow into there, and it made a beautiful cypress swamp. And sometimes when you were out there, you could hear something jump out of a tree and run through that swamp, that area, and make some really strange sounds. And the horses, oh my God, you know, we were always riding horses. And we would try to take the horses out there, and if you didn't keep a tight rein on them, the horses would turn on a dime, and they would run all the way back out of that area. They hated that area, did not want to be in that area. I couldn't get my hunting dogs to go in that area. At times there was really rank smell out there, but my dad and my mom used to walk out there a lot because, he was a bass fisherman, and he'd go out there and, bass fish and stuff like that. Everybody knew it was there. He was always, to me, when we were out there, he was always on edge. And I remember a time when my dad, we heard something, thump out of a tree out there in the middle of that water and go running. And it was obviously on two legs. And my dad turned around and looked at my mom, and he said, "Mabel," he says, pick up the picnic. And so she did, and we left. And my dad was trying to be the big man, and he was not wanting to go fast, but we had a hard time catching up with him.
So he's like, "I'm out of here."
Yeah, he basically was, "I'm getting my butt out of here. You guys come on," But, everybody knew that it was around. I mean, the girls, the teenage girls would ride horses a lot on the right-of-ways and everything, and the women would ride with them. The guy, the boys or whatever, would ride their horses, but it would actually run out in front of the girls, and one of the horses reared at one time, and one of the girls fell off and it broke her arm. But see, everybody knew that it was out there. It's just that what we found out later on is that, okay, this was probably the young one. There were some much bigger ones out there, but our local pig farmer, actually, it was said, there was rumor going around that he killed two of them and buried them with his tractor and front end loader. So we went down there, a bunch of us kids went down there. You know how kids are. Yeah. And we asked him, I'm not going to say the family name because they're still out there. And I don't know if they'd appreciate it or not. But yeah, we said, okay. Let's just say, yeah, Mr. Green, can we see where you buried the boogers? You kids get the hell out of here. Y'all are just trying to make trouble. Y'all get out of here. I'm not showing you nothing. That's about what we got. So, we went back and, we came out. But he would never show where he buried it, but he never would say he didn't kill them. And so we thought we had found some huts out there at Spooky Lake. There's about like a 30-foot drop into the creek there at Spooky Lake, and it would get up crest about 30 foot, and it would get in, it would make that lake. And but there were some huts out there that we found, and they stunk. They stunk inside, and in that hut, in these two huts, you could walk in them and stand straight up, and they were made around a tree. There was limbs and things that was broken off, and they were threaded through, and it was like a rudimentary shelter, kind of like us kids you would make out there in the woods. But inside of them, they stunk. They really stunk. I know what that smell is now. I didn't then. But inside of it, you could find deer skulls and, deer bones, backbone, and rat bones, and squirrel bones, and rabbit bones. Just all kinds of things inside there. And, well, a lot of people would call him also the hermit. And, we went back and we told a few people, and, oh, well, you just found the hermit's, house where he's living at. You found the hermit's house. No, we found the booger's house. We know what we found.
Yeah.
And, it went on like that for a long time. And I started kind of looking up monsters at the library and at the high school, and spent a lot of my free time, doing that. Of course, I didn't really find anything except for I did find some things on Loch Ness, which was really cool. But I really never found anything except for the TV monsters and stuff like that. And like I said, at this point, the only way I knew how to call it by name was the booger. I saw it one other time, and it was in a big rainstorm. And my dad had just bought a real nice Oldsmobile, and he was going to let me take that on a date. Okay, I was out there on that dirt road, but there was a whole lot of pine needles in the windshield wipers. So I stopped. It was really dark, and I wasn't that far from my girlfriend's house. I was pulling the pine needles and leaves and things out of the windshield wipers, and so I could see. And it was sprinkling rain and everything, and thundering and lightning, and all of a sudden I heard these footfalls coming, and and splashing in puddles and everything. And I looked back, and when I did, I saw something running up the road. And I hurried up, and I got in the back of the car. I got back in the car, and I hit the brake light to light up behind me, and it's the booger. He's coming up the road. I don't know what his intentions was, but I don't know if he wanted to ride or if he was going to haul me off or something. But
was it the same one?
Oh yeah, I'm positive it was the same one. Around the same height and the same look and everything. When I hit those brakes and I could see it better, it went off and it went down into the woods. And I rolled the window down and was listening, and I could hear him running through those woods. And I just went on down the road and had my date night and everything, and came home. But that was the last time I ever saw it. I never saw it again. And my life kind of changed after that, and I left home. When I came back, a lot of my old stomping grounds was turning into subdivisions.
I wanted to ask you, when you saw it, did you see facial expressions change the first time you saw it?
Well, not really. It really didn't change from anything other than just a study. You know how when someone is studying you, how their face looks?
Yeah.
That's pretty much, there was some confusion that looked on his face possibly, when I look back at it. And I've looked back at it many times. It was like confusion, kind of like, what are you? And that's what I saw on his face mostly. Like I said, it didn't seem to be at all volatile or anything. Just confused, kind of like in a way it wanted to somewhat communicate. And if I'd have been older and had thought about it and know what I know now, I would say that what this was, our local pig farmer killed the parents, and this was a juvenile by itself, and it wanted some type of, I guess, contact with someone. If I'd have been smarter, maybe I could have had some contact with it. I don't know. They don't normally want that, but this is a juvenile. This is a young one. And like it running out in front of the girls all the time, when they're on their horses and everything. It's like it wanted to be noticed. it wanted, and I think about it, I think a juvenile would do that lost its parents, had, nobody else. I can see a juvenile squatch do this, that hadn't grown, or that wasn't that old. And I guess it wanted attention. It wanted to have some type of camaraderie of some type. I really don't know.
It makes sense if you think about most primates. They're pretty social creatures, really. I mean, any primate, including us, are very social creatures. So if its parents have been shot, I mean, I could see that happening, kind of running out, trying to impress the females, running in front of them, trying to get a reaction. It doesn't sound like it was really aggressive towards you. It just was kind of curious, just real curious. Like you said, like, what are you?
No, it was never really aggressive. From all the stories of the sightings that I had gotten or had gathered, actually, I started writing down everything my friends and all had said about, seeing it and everything. And there was quite a few sightings of it, some individual sightings, a lot of group sightings. So, we weren't all crazy. But, I wrote down in journals a lot of the sightings at that time because I was really interested in it. But like I said, my life, made a change, and I didn't think about it after that for many years, not until I took my long walk, I guess you might say.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
But yeah, it was interesting, and I guess in a way, I was fortunate to have that close contact sighting with it or whatever. I don't know. I don't know how to, what to say about the sighting. It was kind of a curse. It really changed my way of thinking. At 16, my whole world kind of changed, and my thoughts changed, and I did pursue trying to figure out what this thing was. And the closest I could come to, pictures or anything like that were a type of hominid creature that, you see in school books and things like that. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, like Neanderthal is what you're saying, kind of.
Yeah, but that really didn't do it justice either. It was unique. At that time, I really didn't know how to address it, and it changed me a lot. The way my outlook of the world and everything. Monsters aren't supposed to be real, and here I just came face to face with a monster that wasn't so much of a monster.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I think a lot of people who might have an encounter like that and then maybe never step foot in the woods again would think that these things are gentle creatures and you can get really close to them. And at what point in your life did you go, yeah, these things, it's not a good idea to get that close?
You mean when I realized that they truly were monsters?
Yeah, I mean, at what point did it kind of hit you that, these really aren't the cuddly teddy bears out there, that they can turn on you pretty quick? Was it when you were mining? Was there something that happened where you thought, Jesus, these things are something wrong with them?
Well, my time I spent prospecting and up in the mountains and everything, I really didn't have a lot of trouble with them. The fellow who taught me how to pan and how to use the placer mine and everything, he was an old man, but, he told me, what I would see up there. Basically, he told me to leave them alone. They can be dangerous. Don't shoot at them. Don't feed them. Don't just stay out of their way, back off, and things like that. I realized that, these things are huge. What I saw was basically a juvenile. The large ones are very much monster-like and do have an attitude. And I guess it was while I was out in the big thicket and then I went up north and everything that I realized that I really didn't want to make them mad. I realized that the first time I saw one hunt a deer and pull it and tear it apart, I realized that, I didn't want to be on that receiving end. This is something that's quite wild. It's unique in its wildness, and it's unique in what possible little bit of humanity that they have is on the wild side. It's not like our humanity. And so, and I know there's just a lot of people that aren't going to agree with me, but it's true. What I see in them and what I see in us are two different types of humanity. I see an old humanity in these things. I see a beginning of humanity in these things. And it's unique, but it walks on the wild side, and then it has its animal side, which is also still unique for animals, and they're smart, but yet everything is on the wild side. Its humanity walks on the wild side, and its animal walks on the wild side. And, what do animals do? They hunt, they kill, they eat other animals. They do a lot of things that, to not say the same old things that everybody else says, but it's true. They're an apex predator. And I think they take notions. They can have a compassion, but yet they may not. They may just break your neck or pull your head off. And I don't want to be on that receiving end. I've seen them, kill animals. I've seen them stalk animals. It is not something that you want to be receiving from them. I can't see how, you can barely get away from these things. They do scare me. I mean, even though, a lot of people might not, think that Bob Garrett gets scared. Well, I'm out there sometimes. They can scare the heck out of me. I have learned through the years, just how far I can go. And I try to teach that to, the guys and everything. You just can't push these things.
Yeah, you push your luck with these things, and you, like you said, you might be on the receiving end of their fury. Honestly, Bob, I think it's unique. These things are very unique creatures. You never really know what they're going to do. They're very unpredictable. I had a lady on. She was recounting a story that she had, and she walked up on it. She thought it was a bear, but it was digging underneath a tree with its hands, and she saw the hands. But when she very first came up on it, she thought it was a bear kind of hunched over. And so she started trying to get out of the area, and she makes noise. She's about 10, 15 feet from the thing. She steps on a branch, and it turns over and looks at her. And what's interesting about that particular encounter is it stands up, and it's looking at her. And she said that its expressions changed. At first, it was kind of confusion. It saw her, and then it was kind of curious, kind of cocked its head, was kind of curious on what she was. And she said that she can't tell you how long she stood there for, but it wasn't very long. And she said in a flash of a moment, it went to a pissed off face and roared at her. And then she just took off running. But, their temper, it can flip on a dime like that. I mean, it can just, yes. Things can change really, really quick. She at first, I would imagine, saw it, was in shock, and I don't know if feeling like it wasn't going to hurt her because it had a curious look on its face. But that expression changed in an instant, and she said it looked pissed, and then roared at her.
It can. That's what I try to tell people is that they can change. I mean, it may be looking at you with this bland look on his face, but it's calculating, and at any moment it can decide your dinner. At any moment it can decide to turn around and walk away. At any moment, it can decide to just toss dirt at you and turn around and walk away. at any moment it can kill you. Their attitude just changes so quickly, and they are quick.
Like you said, going back to the intelligence, like when you were on the pond, it almost kind of sounds like you were being surrounded and the males came in to finish the job because, they could come around that pond pretty quick. But my point is, it's interesting how they're not stupid. They kind of pick and choose their battles, but things can change so quick and these things can come in on you so quick. I loved you sharing that first encounter. I really enjoyed hearing that.
Oh, well, you're welcome. I was happy to do it. I still think about that, and it really did change my life.
Yeah, well, the first one always will. It seems like the first time you see it.
That's what I was going to say. And, in a way, I'm fortunate because my first encounter with them was that benign, because a lot of people, their first encounter that I have talked to, a lot of people doing reports and everything, wasn't quite so benign. and they got to see a full-sized monster, not this adolescent that wasn't, any bigger than me.
You're right. Most encounters really aren't happy encounters. They aren't the Harry and the Henderson type encounters. They're usually not happy encounters.
No, they're not.
Well, Bob, I know you're not feeling well. I appreciate you coming on my episode 200. Means the world to me, and I'm honored that you could be on tonight.
Well, I appreciate it, and I really am honored that you wanted me on your 200th show, and I appreciate that. I really do, Wes. You honor me, sir, and I hope I did. I hope I did good for you.
No, I always enjoy having you on, and I can't wait for the return of the Big Thicket here on Sasquatch Chronicles. I think the fans are going to love it. So, thank you, Bob.
Yes, sir. We're getting the logo ready, and we're getting everything ready, and we're trying to learn how to actually do this too, the way you're going to have us do it. So we're excited about it. We can't wait to bring it back. It really gets in your blood. You can get just almost too much of it, and just gonna have to have a break, and then then you want to go right back to it. But it's fun, and I'm anxious to get back on and say hi to everybody, on my own show and everything.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, I appreciate you asking me, Wes. And you have a good night, and tell your family and that sweet Mimi of yours I said hello.
I will. Thank you, Bob.
All right, bye.
And that's pretty much it for tonight, everyone. Party continues tomorrow. I'll be having, like I said, the Outlaws on. I'll be having some people stop by, say hi, share some stories. Should be a good time. Remember, if you've had an encounter, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. And you know what I'm going to do tonight? I'm actually going to leave you guys with one of my favorite montages I put together. I would say it's right up there in my top 3 of favorite ones. But this is a story of Joshua LaFleur. And LaFleur County in Oklahoma is kind of a famous county named after this gentleman. And this is his story. Hope you guys enjoy it. I will see you guys next time. Oklahoma, 1855. The Choctaw Nation didn't settle this territory voluntarily. They were forced here by the United States government. Soon after settling the territory, members of the tribe would run into man-like feats. The Choctaws were well aware of what these things were. Reports started coming in of food being stolen. Vegetables, fish, constantly being taken from the tribe. Tribal members started coming forward. saying they not only saw the creatures take the food, but they saw the creatures fight over the food. The Choctaws were known for being strong, fierce warriors, but in 1855, they would experience something that they would never forget. The natives started to notice that as food became more scarce, people started coming up missing. 19 women and children had come up missing that year. The Choctaws decided to put an end to it. A troop of 30 of Choctaw's best warriors were put together, including a gentleman by the name of Joshua LaFour. LaFour was a mixed blood. He was part French, part Choctaw. He was deeply respected by the men. LaFour was a captain, and he led his men to the creatures. After riding for 8 hours straight, it was now 4:30 in the afternoon. As the men approached a hilltop, LaFour commanded all of his men to stop. He pulled out his spyglass, looked down the hill, and saw the creatures about 500 yards away. He then commanded a full charge. All hell was about to break loose. With an overwhelming stench of death in the air, Captain LaFour looked back to see most of his men being thrown from their horses as the horses reared up in fear of the creatures. Captain LaFour, along with 8 of his best men, kept riding forward. Their horses never flinched, never wavered. The men were totally unprepared for the greeting they were about to receive. As the captain rode in, he noticed off to his right there was a large mound of dead women and children in various stages of decay. Enraged, the captain pulled his pistol and emptied it into one of the creatures. The creature never flinched. With one swipe, the creature broke the neck of the captain's horse, throwing him from the horse. Captain LaFour got up, pulled out his saber, and began stabbing the creature. Covered in blood, the creature grabbed Captain LaFour's neck and ripped his head off. The Choctaw warriors used their large caliber rifles and started shooting the creatures in the head. When the dust settled, all of the creatures were dead. The warrior's beloved captain also lay dead. He was respectfully buried, along with the 19 women and children. As the men rode back, it was hard replaying the day's events.